from our 300 foot to the 200 foot that's currently enumerated in the state statute. By doing that, it solves all of the proximity issues in our central business district downtown, and would permanently solve, for Ms. Reed, the concern that has been brought forth there. But in addition to her business, it takes care of the rest of the downtown. Councilor Herbal, did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
It would not take care of the Elgin, though, is that accurate?
Elgin has already been granted a permanent.
Okay.
It's already on file.
Okay.
Part of city code, passed by ordinance, so that's all resolved.
So the only difference from the proposed 1485 from the one we initially received is the change from 300 to 200?
It will change city code from 300 to 200. It does not grant a specific exemption for a building, or for a.
Right, okay. I see.
Okay.
Yep.
We're changing city code to permanently address the situation rather than issuing an exemption for one more property.
Any other questions from council? I would move to approve ordinance 1485.
Second.
Been moved second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Number 14, airport comprehensive design. Darren?
Good evening. What you had in your packet, right, yes, is the one page of this airport layout plan that we do. We received a grant from the state a couple years ago to get this completed. So we've met with the airport board a couple of times to make sure the direction we are heading with this plan for the airport is what they wanted. So now we're kind of bringing it to you, just kind of formalize it with you as the governing body. What we'll do to finish this up here over the next couple of months is each one of these ideas of how we need to move forward with the airport. We'll actually have projects listed with proposed costs, remembering that we can go to KDOT Aviation to get a grant for these projects. And typically those grants are 90% state funds, 10% local. So that's kind of the idea. What you see in front of you is a bunch of lines that probably make absolutely no sense to you, okay? What you have in front of you is one sheet out of 19 that we have to produce to really give everybody an exact, accurate picture of what's going on at the airport. What I'll do though is so to your right on the sheet, that is north. Okay, so that's back towards Highway 56. The left lower, if you can kind of see it with the aerial, there's kind of an aerial photo in the background. You can kind of see the county lake in that lower left-hand corner of that picture. So you see those trapezoid boxes extending off of each runway. Those are safety zones that we have to take a look at. Some of them are on the ground. The big ones you see that extend out the 5,000 feet, which is roughly a mile, those are actually in the air. They're a slope that goes up in the air. And what we do as an airport is we're protecting that airspace above that slope. It's not that somebody can't build below it. We're just protecting anything getting close to that slope that goes up. So the ones that are closer to the airport, you kind of see some orange and some red zones, if you zoom in or look close. Those are on the ground. And most of those right now, you already own that property, or in a couple of cases, we're slightly tweaking a runway to make sure that we own the property that those safety zones are within. So the only thing we're really proposing for the future of the airport, since we bought that property off the north end a couple of years ago, that got us step one into constructing a new runway. The ultimate goal from the airport board standpoint and past city councils when this kind of started to get rolling here is to end up with a new runway at some point that is large enough to handle at least medevac aircraft. we are kind of, when you look at a KDOT, a big picture KDOT aviation map, Marion County and Chase County, this portion right here kind of sets in a hole on their map. Their goal with KDOT aviation, starting about 20 years ago, was to have no citizen of the state of Kansas more than 30 miles from an airport that can handle a medevac aircraft. We're kind of in this little pocket right here that doesn't exactly meet that. Therefore, that's why they funded Go Ahead, and the state of Kansas has said, hey, we like the idea of putting that improved airport here in Marion, because it gives us that opportunity to fill one more hole in the state system. So the first thing we had to do is plan for it with this and show that we can make it work. We don't have other obstructions going on. We don't have other things that could cause a problem if we decide to build a runway. So what you see kind of the long, there's the old runway, the asphalt one that's there now, you can see just right near the bottom of the map, right off the apron and the hangars. You can see it's right at basically a half mile long. The new one would be close to 4,200 feet long. See the 4,042, I can't remember which number we came up with. It's one of those two numbers. So we'd be extending the runway probably to the south. That's the most logical location right now, but that is not set in stone. That's something we have to continue to work with, but that's what we show on here. So extending that runway, making it a little bit wider, allows us to get the category of aircraft that's the King Air, so twin turboprop type aircraft. So it would allow more aeronautical activity at the airport for general aviation, as well as give us that availability for the medevac aircraft if needed. So something else I did want to mention and bring up, one of the other sheets that I don't have here for you, but if anybody ever wants to see all 19 sheets, feel free to stop by the office. I'll go through the sheets with you. We have to evaluate each runway and the approach coming into it for a landing, as well as the departure going away from it on a takeoff, or anything that's out there in that potential path for obstructions. We've done that on every single runway, and as of right now, nothing existing, nor in the new proposed runway are an issue. In other words, everything is lower than we have to be to just go ahead and move forward with the plan, which is very good. We don't have power poles in the way, we don't have trees in the way, we don't have houses. Definitely don't have towers. That's the biggie. The other thing I did want to let you know is that because you're an airport, you're not a NIPIAS airport, which means you get FAA funding. There's a chance in the future we could apply for it and possibly get that category, because there's some criteria that we can meet to do that, which would need some additional type funding for the airport. But right now you're not. But as an airport, you have the right a little bit beyond a city to project out to 2 miles to control the airspace. Now, fortunately, your airport's already or the city limits is already around it, so the same 2 miles applies under the home rule that you have 10,000 feet from any point on the city limits to control things on the ground, as zoning and that type of thing on the ground. Well, it's the same thing with the airport. You can control things out 2 miles from the airport, which means the biggest piece is protection from the towers. Fortunately, all the big towers that are up here on Highway 56, they're all outside that 10,000 feet, so we're okay with them, no problem with that. What it would mean is, what we wouldn't want to have happen is, say a tower, say KDOT, because they put up a lot of towers a couple years ago, 10 years ago or so, all over the state for weather and other purposes. If they wanted to put one of those on Highway 77, we could control with this where at along Highway 77 and say, hey, you need to move either north or south, so it's outside of our 10,000 foot radius. Just as a way to make sure that it wouldn't interfere with future airport activity. So that's always something to keep in the back of our mind. Not that we'll ever see from a zoning, if somebody wanted to put a tower up, and they're not gonna come to the city to get a permit, but by having this out there, there are other things that they would have to go through to put a big tower in that we can watch, and that we do watch all across the state. So,
Would there be a need for a moratorium, just to be ahead of the game or
No.
not? Okay.
No. The biggest thing is, even if a cell tower company, say, wanted to come put something in, or KDOT or anybody else, they still have to go through the county. So the biggest thing is making sure the county is aware that, and it's not just for you, it's the Hillsborough Airport too. I mean, all of our airports have that same 10,000 feet protection zone for airspace.
And once this plan is filed with the state, it comes up automatically on any construction permits.
Oh, good.
Anybody applied in the state, so wind farms, communications, anything that is above, I believe it's 105-foot level, automatically comes out through the state's permitting process. That's why this plan's important for us to have a comprehensive file with the state for the future.
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned the wind tower, because as the wind farm was starting to come into play a couple of years ago, we already met with them early on in their planning process and already drew out this 10,000 foot and said, hey, please stay away from this area, these sections and quarter sections that fall within this, and they did. Early on, they deal with enough airports all over the country that company said, yeah, I will stay away, so they did. So, without asking any other specific questions, the other thing we did, one of the plans, one of the sheets shows, in the terminal area, how we plan to build up the terminal area, meaning the hangars and the taxiways for the future to get the most utilization out of that area. So we've done that on this plan too, with their help with the airport board. Doesn't mean we're stuck with that. I mean, just because we show a T hangar right here versus an individual box hangar, doesn't mean we have to go that route, but at least it gives an idea how we can progress to get the max utilization out of our space. So all those are pieces and parts of the plan. Like I said, I didn't want to spend hours going through it here, because we've been through the airport board a couple times now. Just wanted to get you guys aware of it and let you know that a couple more, probably within another month or two, I can come back and present the final that's getting ready to go up. So if anybody wants between now and then to come in and get a better handle on this, you feel free to stop by or call me and see when we can talk, and I can walk you through all the sheets.
And I would like to share with you from a non-engineer standpoint, what really the plan entails. We're going to build a longer, concrete or asphalt runway to handle twin engine medevac flights, okay? That's the driving force here. For our pilots, they like having grass runways that they can use for their older planes. The plan maintains the two cross-directional airstrips for them, for their continued use. So they're aware of that. Once we get to the construction phase of this new runway, the grass runway that runs parallel to it will be abandoned. But they understand at that point, they've got a much wider, smoother runway to deal with in the future. So,
And what Roger's saying right now is actually right now, whether you realize it or not, we actually have 4 runways out here. We have 3 turf grass runways and 1 asphalt. So in the future, what we're gonna go to is 1 concrete, and we're gonna utilize the existing asphalt one as our taxiway out to the new concrete runway. And then we'll keep the 2 grass runways that run in an X configuration, northwest, southeast, and northeast, southwest. We'll just eliminate the one that parallels, the road.
You know, 3 of us, here on the council weren't here in 2019 when you applied for this. But I just have a question about how long do we have on this grant?
We're cleaning it up this year. They want the money expended by the end of June.
The end of this June?
Yeah, and all we have left to do is these OPCs, the project costs.
So we'll have to start construction pretty quick?
No, this is not construction.
Oh, okay.
The grant you received is just to get started up.
Oh, for purchase of.
Right, and what it does is the next application round, if you guys approve the plan, in September is the next KDOT aviation grant round. We would come back at that point, work with city staff and then to you guys and say, hey, do you want to submit an application for the next step
Okay, I got
to
you.
move towards this? So this is
So
purely,
we've already complied with what they.
this is just purely planning, and we'll have it closed out here in another 60 days, well ahead of the June timeframe.
Okay.
Yes, and additionally, KDOT believes strongly enough that our airport is the prime one to fill that 30-mile access void that exists. It was with KDOT money that we purchased the field to the north, the 42 acres, or 44, depending on which description we use. They provided 95% of that funding, and we provided 5%. At the same time, they said, we want you to continue to work towards it, but you need to have a comprehensive plan for development filed with the state.
And that's,
So they also gave us this grant that we're working to close out right now for EDH to do all of the future design, working with our airport board and their needs. And that's where we're at. COVID came in, we were awarded in 19. KDOT Aviation went to working remotely.
Right.
We weren't able to hold an airport board meeting for 9 months, so everything's picking back up. Our goal is by the end of April to have this design grant closed out, and the project submitted and filed with the state. And then that queues us up for whatever next phases would be necessary.
Okay.
and at the same time, like I said, federal, I'm gonna start asking the question of the FAA, what, how can we get into their queue? How can we get into their process? Because that would provide about $150,000 more per year towards future projects that we can bank for several years. It's another potential grant stream that would really help our airport out long term. So,
Anybody got any other questions? Okay, I think we need to take action on a couple of these. One of them is to approve EBH engineering invoice in the amount of $14,000. Do you hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
I abstain.
Okay, we have, one abstention, which goes with majority, so 5-0. Second one is to, approve KDOT aviation grant drawdown in the amount of $13,300. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moving second, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0. Secondary.
thanks.
Number 18, discussion regarding hiring under 18 seasonal staffing.
Your management team staff has been meeting as part of our planning, looking to our needs moving forward. And one of our large needs is when we get into the mowing season, is having 4 additional part-time employees from the May to basically Memorial to Labor Day timeframe. Last year, with our efforts trying to advertise, recruit, and so forth, we were unable to fill those positions. Because most folks that graduate from high school when they're 18 years of age, they're ready to start careers, move on to the next phase in life. We weren't able to recruit anyone to fill those positions. So the discussion came up, well, in the past, the city had hired under 18-year-olds, specifically 16 and 17-year-olds for designated mowing and weed trimming to support our parks operations, our alley or roadside mowing, the levee mowing, and the cemetery. The policies, since I've been your city administrator, is we haven't hired anyone under 18 years of age. I've checked with our workers' compensation provider, there is no prohibition to 16 and 17-year-olds. I've checked with our liability coverage insurance company. Their only cautions are that the employee receive proper training for the equipment they're going to operate, that they cannot operate any city vehicles, and we would have to provide transportation from where they report to work, which would be either the city shop or the cemetery. Then we would have to have one of our CDL drivers take them to their work location, wherever they're mowing. We've also gone through and checked the child labor laws, state of Kansas, as well as federal child labor laws. We have nothing that would interfere with us hiring a 16 or 17-year-old for the summer timeframe. But ultimately, that decision comes down to Wisconsin.
Comes down to what?
This city council, you have to approve staff's ability to hire qualified 16 and 17-year-olds for seasonal employment designated as mowing and weed trimming in our public area. So this evening, I'm asking for a motion of instruction, either it will be acceptable to advertise the positions for 16 and up, or stay with our current policy.
Roger, we wouldn't put these kids in harm's way as far as mowing. I know we have some deep ditches and stuff like that they probably aren't used to mowing.
Yeah, we would have to train them, and the other piece that I failed to mention, they would have daily supervision, not just train them and send them. Like when they're in the parks, they would be supervised by Dwayne, so we can keep a presence and make sure that they're operating safely.
Well, the parks I wasn't concerned with. What I'm concerned with is that in the industrial park where we mow the ditches and stuff up there. I know some of our regular guys have taken down the signs and stuff with the mower up there, so. I'd hate to see them like in Ann's Park and stuff like that. I'd hate to see them on the slopes. But I do think it's a good idea to hire our local youth.
We just believe it'll open up our local workforce a little broader, and it gives some of our high school juniors, soon to be seniors, a little bit higher wage than what they can make at current places that would hire 16 and 17-year-olds.
So we're talking about 16 to 18-year-olds.
Yeah, 16 and 18. And it would only be for that specific seasonal mowing position.
Okay.
They would not be doing any other activities for the city. There'd be nobody there around trash trucks or any of our heavy equipment. They're simply going to be hired to run a lawnmower or zero turn mower, and then weed eating, and primarily that's up in the cemetery. It takes a lot of man hours to keep that going.
I know at the city park, I mean, there's times when we need to paint some of the picnic tables, for example, and they could do that.
If we define that as part of their job responsibility, and I have to file that with the MC insurance.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Staff's intent would be they would be hired simply for this function, and if it's raining, they just wouldn't have hours
Okay.
until they could go back. So we're not trying to find work to keep them busy if, you know. And years vary here. Sometimes by July 4th, every bit of grass in this part of the country is dead. Or you've got years like last year, it grew all the way through October.
So we're not guaranteeing the whole summer, just when we need them. Is that correct?
Right, they would be hired in the intent that it would go from June 1st or Memorial Day through Labor Day
If needed.
if needed.
I mean, I can just think of it, when I worked in the park, you know, they were very helpful when I had them down there, like cleaning out the fountains. I mean,
We can define it within the job description.
Okay, so would we approve the job description and will that come back to us?
I'll have to come back to you with a modified job description for this seasonal mowing position and include the duties. And then that's what we would provide to our, insurance company for liability purposes.
Okay, so does the council, would you guys agree to the painting portion of it?
Sure.
And clean the fountains.
Yeah,
And the fountains.
in the fountains and clean up, clean up. I mean, there's no reason they couldn't go around and pick up limbs, in the park, we've had limbs fall down, things of that nature, so.
Yeah, we would just not be able to let them use a chainsaw.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's part of the federal stuff.
No, no chainsaws. Well, I would move to approve, the hiring of, seasonal staffing under the Edgewater King. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Council.
Number 19, City Council's rezoning request.
The planning commission instructed me to come back and let you know that, they made a motion to start the process to rezone the 3 lots on the northeast corner of section 1 in the industrial park to general commercial. But based on the information available to them at the time of the meeting, they decided to only take action on the north part until further information arises necessitating a change in the southern portion.
What information do they require? What are they asking for?
Basically, who wants to go where. They were concerned about changing it and then having to change it back if somebody came and wanted industrial.
Isn't that the purpose of zoning, is to not know exactly who's going somewhere? You zone it so that a business can come in and say, look, these are the lots we have for you, you can go here, and then you look in the zoning and, yep, you're able to go there without a conditional use permit? So I guess I'm confused as to why they're saying they don't wanna work with us without knowing who's going there. That seems like it's
Well,
contradicting itself.
I understand. I was actually encouraged that they did this much. That's all I can tell you is they didn't feel like they had enough information on the south part to go ahead and just make a blanket change on everything.
Well, Roger and I attended that meeting and we explained to them exactly the reason that we wanted to rezone that. And the council voted 5-0, asking that these specific lots were rezoned, and that's not good enough for them?
Well, like I said, I was actually encouraged they did that much. The chairman made the motion and I was encouraged.